let's continue our DreamWorks marathon with the third and maybe final adventure with Alex and the gang as they accidentally become international fugitives while they join a circus crew so they can hopefully return to New York. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. Following the events of Escape to Africa, the penguins are Skipper, Kulski, Rico, and Privateer and the chimpanzees Mason and Phil leave Africa for Monte Carlo in their modified airplane. When they do not return, Alex the lion convinces his friends Marty the zebra, Melman the giraffe, and Gloria the hippo that they should go find them and return to their home at the Central Park Zoo. With their lemur friends from Madagascar, King Julian, Morris, and Mortar, they find the penguins and chimpanzees at the Monte Carlo casino. Chaos ensues, and the animals barely escape from Animal Control Officer Chantal Dubois, who is determined to add Alex's head to her taxidermy collection. When their plane crashes, the animals board a departing circus train. The circus animals are Stefano the sea lion, Jaya the jaguar, and Vitali the tiger, who are suspicious of outsiders. So Alex lies by claiming that they are American circus animals. The circus is headed for a performance in Rome, followed by one in London where they hope to impress an American promoter in order to get their first American tour. To allay suspicion, the penguins purchase the circus from its human ringmaster. In Rome, Alex becomes enamored with Jaya while King Julian falls in love with performing bear Sonia. Stefano explains to Alex that the circus was once famous and Vitali was its star, skillfully jumping through ever smaller hoops. However, one day he tried to jump through a tiny flaming hoop and the olive oil he used as lubricant caught fire. The accident caused Vitali to lose his passion, and the entire circus suffered as a result. Alex convinces the circus animals to come up with a new, exciting, all-animal act that will restore their former glory. Will the gang be able to finally get back home and avoid Dubois? The story is surprisingly just as well written as the first two movies, as this one still has the same witty and zany humor that's very well handled, and the same level of heart and charm. Also, this movie is more action-packed than its predecessors, which I'll get to the reasons why in a bit. And overall, the way this movie is structured really does make it feel like a genuine conclusion to the story that began in the original. However, there are a couple of predictable moments and does build up to the lie revealed cliche, but thankfully that part is short and doesn't have the usual third act moping. Also, despite the fact that the film begins at Africa, neither Zubu or Flory are seen nor mentioned and don't even seem to exist anymore in spite of their major role in the previous film. And it's kinda strange that Alex decided to leave Africa without even saying goodbye to his parents first. The comedy is thankfully still just as funny and zany as it was in the first two movies, as there are still a lot of very funny and humorous moments, such as the witty banter and dialogue between the characters, the snarky comebacks and one-liners, the gags and slapstick, the adult jokes and dark humor, and some of the gross-out humor. This movie has some very fun and exciting action scenes which result in this movie being the most action-packed on the movies, such as the animals trying to escape the casino, them getting chased down by Dubois across Monte Carlo, Marty rescuing Stefano from the cliff, and the final confrontation with Dubois. The movie also has the same level of heart and charm of the first two movies, which does still result in some very heartfelt and charming moments, such as the gang's growing friendship with the circus animals, Vitali opening himself up again after so long and coming to terms with his past, and a pretty satisfying ending. The animation is hands down the best it's looked in all the three movies, as it looks very well polished and still has the zany art style of the other films, such as the characters all having some very solid designs that are accompanied by some very fluid, lively, and zany movements. The backgrounds and settings are very well crafted and have a great amount of detail. There are some awesome effects such as the fire and explosions, the lighting, the water, and so on. Also, The visuals during the circus performances are amazing. However, there are a few pretty awkward shots, mainly because this was a 3D movie and there's some moments where things lean or jump toward the frame to cater to the 3D gimmick of stuff popping out of the screen. The characters are all still very likable and well written, as they do still have some great chemistry, dynamics, and development where there. It's the returning characters still being their same lovable selves, such as Alex, Marty, Gloria, Melman, the Penguins, Julian and Morris, Mort, and the Chimps, and a lot of the new characters such as the gruff Vitali, the kind-hearted Jaya, the eccentric Stefano, and the beastly Sonia. Also, Du Bois is a very funny and well-written villain, as she is very determined to catch Alex so she can have his head on her mantle, and her determination and skills does make her a force to be reckoned with, but at the same time, she can be also very goofy, which does result in her having some very funny moments. The voice acting is just as well done as before and does result in some solid performances, such as Ben Stiller as Alex, Chris Rock as Marty, Jada Pinkett Smith as Gloria, David Schwimmer as Melman, Sacha Baron Cohen as Julian, Cedric the Entertainer as Morris, Andy Richter as Mort, Tom McGraw as Skipper, Francis McDormand as Du Bois, Bryan Cranston as Vitali, Jessica Chastain as Jaya, Martin Short as Stefano, and more. The music by Hans Zimmer is still just as solid as it was in the first two movies, as his score is still very well composed and really does capture the movie's comedic, heartfelt, and charming tone. Overall, this sequel managed to do the impossible and be just as funny and charming as the first two movies, as well as wrapping up the story in a very satisfying way. Also, DreamWorks was planning on doing a fourth movie, but that idea has since been scrapped. Honestly, I think it's for the best that Alex and the Gang's story ended here.